Hello and welcome to Strategic News International. I'm Parul Chandra and I have with me Mr. Shantanu Mukharji, a retired IPS officer. Mr. Mukherjee has also served in Bangladesh and we're going to be talking to him about the security aspect of India-Bangladesh ties. Welcome to SNI, Mr. Mukherjee.
Thank you very much.
Let me begin by asking you, how do you see the recent visit of Sheikh Hasina to India in terms of the security relationship between the two countries?
Well, I find that about security, like Prime Minister Modi said, he appreciated, and in fact, he reiterated. Earlier also, he had said that he appreciates and praises Sheikh Hasina's approach towards counter-terror, describing it for praising her for zero tolerance policy towards terrorism. So this is one hallmark of the visit, and which was said again during the bilateral talks between the two leaders. And there also, among other issues, the maritime or the coastal security was underlined with emphasis, which is very significant, I find, as a security expert. However, having said this, I would have been happier as a security analyst if they had discussed more, not in generic terms, specific terms, about the sharing of real-time intelligence, working out modalities between an increased and heightened cooperation between India and Bangladesh, how to tackle terror, how to reinvent a mechanism for jointly combating terror. As you know, Bangladesh and India both are afflicted with terror threats, and the global Islamic threat looming large, it becomes very important. So I find on the whole it went off very well, or they must have, since they touched upon terror, they must have discussed the modalities or the dynamics of the security mechanism there, which will surface maybe in due course. So on the whole, it was on a very positive note.
Now, let me bring you to this other issue, and which is, of course, the National Register of Citizens of Assam, which is a controversial issue not only within India, but is also causing tremendous anxiety in Bangladesh because the register is seen as excluding a lot of illegal immigrants, largely Bangladeshis. So, how do you see, Sheikh Hasina raised this matter during her meeting with Prime Minister Modi?
Well, we must not forget that this is a very sensitive issue, particularly for a sovereign country like Bangladesh, which is only 46 years old as an independent country, and there is a sense of pride in them. So now those who are not figuring in the NRC, and bulk of them are assumed to be Bangladeshi nationals of origin. Suppose you decide to send them back, and then the effects would be profound and consequences far-reaching, denting the credibility perhaps of Hasina's leadership. But on the positive side, I must state that India's diplomacy was of very fine order, in the sense that our External Affairs Minister, Shri Jaishankar, paid a visit to Bangladesh well ahead of this team when he had gone there to find out the modalities of the visit, the nuts and bolts of the visit. So he had told Sheikh Hasina, the Prime Minister, during his calling on, that this is an internal matter of India, number one. And number two, it is under the directives of the court that Government of India was going ahead. And the same thing, because the homework was done, it was easier for the two leaders on their meeting at Hyderabad House during the bilateral meetings to take it forward, removing all the irritants and ironing out the existing creases. Also, I must like to say that on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly meet last month, they must have held talks how to address the issues so that Hasina's domestic constituency in Bangladesh is also not adversely affected, and the media and the other detractors don't get a chance to criticize their leader. So I think on the whole, Sheikh Hasina did express her concern. She is the prime minister, an elected prime minister of a sovereign country. She has to answer to her mandate. So it was very imperative on her part to raise this question, and she did. But India, being fully prepared to respond to that, handled it very dexterously, I would say. So I think, but only concern which I wish to flag is on the NRC issue, the Bangladeshi general public will continue to be at unease on the establishment because they might think that India, with an aggressive pursuit of this, might push back the Bangladeshis, which may not happen in effect, but the fear or the apprehension is there. At the same time, the Bengali pride is again hurt by the use of a select group of leaders who describe Bangladeshis, say, as pests or termites. So it doesn't bode well with them. And at this point of time, when our relationship is fructifying, it is on a very positive note, any chance of giving to the opponents will be counterproductive. That's on NRC.
You mentioned that, India has been maintaining that NRC is an internal issue and that it's a court-mandated order that has prompted this action. But are you also implying that that the two sides are probably working out something behind the scenes in terms of what happens to people who are not on NRC? Do they go back to Bangladesh?
Yes, I don't rule that out at all, given the successful diplomatic efforts at the back of it, unofficially. They must be working out something. And I'm sure in due course the list will be in the hands of the Bangladesh side also. They may have started scrutinizing each one and verifying whether it's Bangladeshi-origin and all. Some process will be inside. So there is a strong possibility, and I don't rule out.
Let me bring you to another very important issue. It's become quite an irritant in bilateral relations, and that is the Rohingya refugees issue. Now, Bangladesh is sheltering over 1 million Rohingyas in Cox's Bazar, and it feels that India is not backing it adequately enough on this issue. What do you have to say on this?
Well, knowing Bangladesh politics and the psyche of the people there, they know it very well that it is not an easy task. It's a great challenge to deport about 1 million plus, nearly 11 lakh Rohingya refugees to the Rakhine state. It's not an easy job. But Sheikh Hasina, as an astute politician that she is, and equally a very efficient diplomat, if I may say. She has seasoned over the last 10 years of incessant rule there. She has been making a hue and cry internationally to keep the issue alive. That is there. At the same time, in July, if you please recall, she was in China. She met the Chinese president and persuaded, given the good equation between China and Myanmar, if China could persuade the latter to get back the refugees. And her persuasive skill was so much, she convinced the president had to make a public announcement that he's going to send his foreign minister Wang Yi to Myanmar to talk to the leadership. But Hasina knows it very well that it may not work, but the issue is kept alive. Now, from the security point of view, it is extremely important to point out that Hasina should equally address the security concerns emanating out of the presence of the so many refugees in southern Bangladesh. What are those? Number one, the chances of radicalization. We know when they were expelled from Myanmar in August 2017, nearly 2 years ago, the Lashkar-e-Taiba, which is an ISI-sponsored terror outfit, were involved in radicalizing them, indoctrinating them, injecting them with venom to go against India, or to accept ultra-Islam or radical Islam. Rohingyas have also come to notice in Bangladesh for engaging themselves in all the illegal work, which includes human trafficking, making of forged passports, and going everywhere. So I am nobody, not a big stature to advise Hasina. But as a security expert, I feel that because her diplomacy is very proactive now, she and Prime Minister Modi, because she just concluded a successful visit, to join hands together and impress upon the world those Islamic leaders who have shed crocodile tears for the Kashmiri Muslims, but at the same time, say President Erdogan, who is a committed anti-India and pro-Pakistan fellow, the Turkish president. He was the first to arrive carrying his Muslim Brotherhood agenda to the Rohingya camps, trying to give a lot of humanitarian assistance. But neither Turkey nor Malaysia, Mahathir Mohamad, we have seen him recently very vocal, speaking against Kashmir, etc., are targeted by Prime Minister Modi and Hasina and ask them, why don't you apportion some responsibility of taking Rohingyas from the Bangladesh camps? This sympathy is lacking substance. Why are you not doing it? Very recently, you may please recall, Prime Minister Modi held talks with Armenia, Cyprus and Greek leaders who had earlier been targeted by Turkey. This was a great diplomatic move. So similarly, this Turkey, etc., should be targeted on the Rohingyas issue. But Hasina should absolutely not lower the security safeguards against the presence of Rohingyas, lest they are misused or used for any subversive activities. That is the caution.
But do you really think that India is doing enough on the Rohingya issues by providing humanitarian assistance to the refugees in Bangladesh as well as in the Rakhine state? Should India be more proactive, or should it just be content playing a more subtle role in this entire issue?
No, I feel that India should continue to deliver humanitarian assistance to the Rohingyas. And let me remind you, in 2017, soon after the Rohingyas arrived on the Bangladesh soil, India was one of the first countries to send, dispatching huge humanitarian assistance material, relief material, rice, essential items, etc. And this time, during the talks between Sheikh Hasina and Prime Minister Modi, Mr. Modi announced dispatching of tentage and other relief material to this. So that should continue. There need not be any subtle or any opaque diplomacy in this, because what if India is doing, the world should watch. And they should clarify the doubts, if any, that India is not doing enough. And that will also help India forging or strengthening more close ties with Bangladesh, as indicated at the conclusion of the recent visit.
But what I really want to know from you is, should India push Myanmar to take back the refugees?
Well,
diplomatically, should India be playing a more proactive role? That's what Bangladesh is seeking from India, really.
Bangladesh is seeking from India, and I'm sure this will, the motion will not go unheeded. The Indian mandarins of South Bloc, Ministry of External Affairs, would definitely pass on the concerns to Myanmar. But I'm doubtful if Myanmar would act on this or not. In this connection, I wish it is not impertinent to point out also, very recently Sheikh Hasina, prior to her departure, had mentioned that she knows that Aung San Suu Kyi, with whom India nurtures an excellent relations, and old relations from 60s and 50s. Her father was also a friend of India. She has gone on record praising her, that she is not against persecution or excesses against Rohingyas. It is the group of generals and the Myanmarese people in general who are against it. So she was very diplomatic and she was. So India will definitely try to tell Myanmar, and of course trying to convince that, look, Hasina was here and these are the problems, and it might spill over the problem to India also, raising security concerns. If you take back, it would be a great thing for you, and your credibility will also increase. But whether Myanmar will listen to Indian pleas, as it had been ignoring the Chinese attempts, is to be seen.
Yes. I wanted to bring your attention and ask you about another issue, which is the growing radicalization within Bangladesh. The Jamaat elements are very active, and this again is a cause for worry for India. And how do you see this impacting Bangladesh and even India in the long run?
Well, Hasina is one leader who has been extremely effective in dealing with the fundamentalists there. In 2013, there had been a spate of killings of the bloggers, the liberals, and etc. And we thought that things were going out of control. And soon after, in 2016, on 1st of July, there was an attack on the bakery.
Yes.
These were all products of the radicalization handled there. But Hasina did not get deterred by these things, and she continued to hang those responsible for killings of the innocent in run-up to the Liberation War of 1971 and even now, which had incurred the wrath of the Islamic fundamentalists. You mentioned about Jamaat-e-Islami, which stands defranchised by her. She has the guts and the resolve to deal with them. Only thing is, what is matter of worrying is that Jamaat-e-Islami is banned from contesting an election, but the elements remain. And any inept handling or insensitive handling by India in the bilateral issues of Bangladesh will give some excuse on the platter of these anti-India elements who might exploit to their advantage, discrediting Hasina. So India, how to contain the rise of fundamentalism, should hold hands of Bangladesh in sharing real-time quality intelligence with them, actionable intelligence with them. And in this regard, again, it will not be out of context to mention that a watchful eye has to be kept on Pakistan's activities. It is more than a coincidence that a day before Hasina arrived in Delhi, she received a phone call from Imran Khan inquiring about her surgical procedure, which he underwent in London recently. All of a sudden, why? I have no reasons to explain, but it has to be read it very carefully, because Pakistan does not enjoy a full diplomatic relations with Bangladesh now, and Hasina has been very strict, and there had been repeated expulsions of diplomats from each country because of incompatible relations. And Pakistan High Commission had come to notice in the past for pumping fake currency into the Indian through the West Bengal borders and the large porous borders and all kind of activities. Earlier, it needs to be on record, it had been encouraging the Northeast insurgents also, using Dhaka, its mission in Dhaka, and other agents for subterfuge activities against India. With Hasina at the helm, these things fortunately have come to an end. So India should hold Bangladesh's hand in combating these challenges. That is important.
One final question. Now, from what you have said so far, Bangladesh, especially Sheikh Hasina's government, has been really cooperative with India where India's needs are concerned, be it a crackdown on insurgents sheltering in Bangladesh or other issues. But has India been able to reciprocate in equal measure? We've not been able to give her the Teesta Waters Treaty.
Yes, you are absolutely spot on. There were lots of hopes in Bangladesh that this time Teesta Waters will be accorded. And she's already started facing flack. I was going through some newspaper reports. They are saying that she's returning empty-handed. And naturally, they were looking for some opportunity, some excuse, some pretext to criticize her. So that is there. So on the river sharing, the 6 river waters, which it was expected they would advise like several rivers, 6 rivers are particularly there.
They're working on a
and others, they're working out. And the Prime Minister Modi had directed the concerned officials to work it out, this thing. On its part, India was able to extract an assurance of getting 1.82 cusics of water from River Feni for a drinking water project in Agartala. Now, this is what is India is in a win-win situation, and it must be said to the credit of Sheikh Hasina and the people of Bangladesh, or the government of Bangladesh, to have accommodated this without getting anything from Tista. Earlier, it was said that West Bengal Chief Minister, Madam Mamata Banerjee, was hindrance and she was a stumbling block. But this is high time that she is also reciprocated. You very appropriately use the word, so that the relations are on an even keel and there are no irritants whatsoever. Why? Because Bangladesh stands as the staunchest ally of India as we speak. Shahidul Haq, their foreign secretary, when asked by a reporter at Hyderabad House, said that this is a time the relations between the two countries are at their best. And such statements must be diplomatically capitalized in letter and in spirit too. So we, as an senior nation, if I would say, or more this thing, should continue to collaborate with Bangladesh in all its this thing, walk an extra mile to see that relations always remain cordial and harmonious.
Yeah, that's really the need of the hour.
That's very
especially because India now has a neighborhood first policy.
That's it, exactly.
On that note, thank you so much for talking to us, Mr. Mukherjee. Pleasure having you with us.
Thank you very much for having me.